Good evening, cadets. This is Lance from CinematicGalaxy here tonight, and as promised, I'm here to bring you my review of Thrawn, a Star Wars novel by Timothy Zahn. There will not be any spoilers in this review, so don't worry about that. But basically, Thrawn is, for those of you who are Star Wars fans that don't know, Timothy Zahn is something of a legend in Star Wars lore because he wrote the legendary Thrawn trilogy that is no longer canon. It's no longer a part of the original timeline for Star Wars, but it was essentially the start back in the early 90s of what is now Legends, the old expanded universe. And at that time, those books were really the only sequels that people had to the original trilogy. So those books were a very big deal. They introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn, other characters like Mara Jade, Talon Card, very popular Star Wars characters that are still popular. And last year's celebration in Europe, Thrawn was revealed to be in Season 3 of Rebels, which thus revealed him as canon. At that time, I had not read any of Zahn's Thrawn novels, but I did know that he was a big deal, so even I was excited. And that really spurred me on to read the Thrawn trilogy, mostly in time for Rebels Season 3, and it helped me to gain a better appreciation and understanding for that character, and really a love for that character as well. And this book that I'm holding right here was also announced at last year's celebration. So it was just, everything was looking up for fans of Thrawn. This book came out April, and it's finally here. So without further ado, I'll give you my thoughts on it. But to start out, just a little brief synopsis. This book pretty much follows Thrawn as he's on his rise to becoming the Grand Admiral he is, as we know him from Legends and Rebels. And it's very interesting because you see the obstacles he faces along the way. It's by no means it is somewhat of a smooth ride, but it's a little bit of a bumpy road for him being an alien. Because one of the staples in canon and in Legends, but it's a canon thing, is that there's a lot of prejudice against aliens, against non-humans in the Empire. So to see Thrawn essentially go from being a nobody to being who he is, who we know him as, it's very interesting, and that essentially is what this book is, with little subplots here and there that connect the bigger picture. But to give my thoughts on Thrawn, to sum it up in a brief nutshell, I really did like this book. I wouldn't say I loved the book. Just to get the negative out of the way, my negative, which is a little bit of a positive that I'll get into in a moment, is that this book I found to be painfully slow at times. There were moments where, for me, and sorry, Zahn diehards, it's my honest opinion, the writing was not bad at all. The writing was very, very good. Timothy Zahn is he has great prose and all that, and he understands Star Wars to a T. But there were moments in this book where I just felt like it was so uneventful and nothing substantial was really going on that was keeping my interest. I just have to be honest about that. Particularly towards the middle, I kind of really had a hard time staying interested. But fortunately, it really did pick up in the, leading into the second half more, leading into the third act. The book picked up a lot. And that leads me into how this negative is in some strange way also a positive. This book really reads like you are in Thrawn's psyche. You are essentially in Thrawn's head reading this book. So it kind of makes sense that it would be a little plodding, a little slow, methodical, very, very much like you're reading a tactician's mind. And in a way, that's a positive, and that might have been intentional on Zahn's part. So, I mean, even though I said that was a negative, in some ways it's a positive. It just did not always make for the most engaging read, in my opinion. But I've gotten the main negative out of the way. I will also say that some of the little side missions, no spoilers, but some of the little side missions that Thrawn and his crew, his sidekicks, go on aren't the most interesting in my opinion. And I found myself sort of skimming over those details in the book, and they didn't really stick with me. So that's another minor kind of negative. I just felt that those parts could have been a lot more captivating. But anyway, negatives aside, getting into the positives of this book, which there are several. Um, the other characters surrounding Thrawn, namely Eli Vanto. He's Thrawn's sidekick in this book. He's very much a fish out of the water type of character, and just a very fascinating look at an Imperial, in my opinion. And I actually found myself really rooting for this guy, really liking him. He's really kind of an underdog, which is also another positive toward Thrawn. I think it's really cool seeing Thrawn as the underdog for once. Seeing him before people really know just how great he is. Seeing him have to prove that, especially as an alien, was a story that really resonated with me, and I connected with that, and I thought that was cool. And Eli Vanto, definitely you saw parallels and similarities, a definite connection between him and Thrawn. Also, Arinda Price is in this book. Those of you who are caught up on Rebel Season 3, she's Governor Price in that. So in Thrawn, you get to see how Arinda Price becomes the governor that she is. You get to see her go through what she's going through, and her story is very much an underdog story. To be completely honest, she was my favorite part of the book, and I was happy whenever her parts of the book would come up because I just found them very interesting. Again, there's not much I can say without giving spoilers, but I really loved her character. Seeing how she kind of isn't the best person to begin with, and you really see how why she craves this power, why she wants to rise up, and how she does so. So I thought that was really cool. And there's another thing, another real positive about Thrawn is that there are certain tidbits, no spoilers, but certain little tidbits that are revealed, hinted at, that I just found fascinating, and they could potentially have implications moving further down the line, possibly even in the saga films, and possibly in Rebels Season 4. So pretty much in a nutshell, I know that seemed like a very brief review, but I have to say I did like Thrawn despite my flaws with it. Ultimately, it wound up being a pretty satisfying read, and I have to give it out of 10. I've decided on a rating system out of 10. I would give it about a 7.3. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was good. It didn't blow me away or anything, but it does leave me wanting more Timothy Zahn novels in the canon, and that's the best you can ask for, right? Anyway, guys, if you've read Thrawn, what did you think of this book? Did you love it more or less than me? If you haven't read it, let me know if you do plan to read it. Hopefully my review convinces you to read it, because as I said, I did enjoy the book. And anyway, guys, stay tuned for my next few reviews, and this is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy, signing off.